Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
For nearly a century, the American dream promised that hard work would translate into stability. A steady job could support a family. A home would be attainable. Education would unlock opportunity. Retirement would be secure. First articulated in the Epic of America, the dream centered on upward mobility regardless of birth. For decades after World War II, it felt real for millions. Today, however, many Americans feel less like they are climbing toward prosperity and more like they are bracing against instability. The economic strain facing Americans did not begin in one presidency, but it has been shaped by recent ones. Under Joe Biden, the United States experienced a surge in inflation following pandemic-era stimulus and global supply chain distributions. Although inflation cooled from its peak, the cost of living remains elevated. Housing prices, rent, groceries, and insurance costs continue to strain middle-class households.
States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we even thought of that.
Now, under the current administration of Donald Trump, the economic direction has shifted again, but uncertainty remains. His administration has emphasized aggressive tariff policies, expanded deportation initiatives, and a renewed focus on energy independence. Supporters argue tariffs protect American manufacturing and reduce reliance on China. Critics counter that tariffs function as indirect taxes on consumers, potentially raising prices and straining trade relationships. Relations with China remain a defining global pressure point. Trump's renewed tariff strategy and confrontational posture aim to reduce dependence on Chinese manufacturing and strengthen domestic industry. Foreign policy further complicates the picture. The United States continues to provide support to Ukraine in its war against Russia, though debate over the scale and duration of aid has intensified under Trump's leadership. Some factions argue that American resources should be redirected inward. In the Middle East, tensions involving Israel and Hamas continue to test U.S. diplomatic balance. Trump's approach has leaned toward a stronger rhetoric support for Israel and a harder stance on Iran. Housing remains one of the clearest indicators that the dream is strained. Mortgage rates remain elevated compared to the ultra-low rates of the early 2020s. Limited housing supply, zoning restrictions, and investment-driven real estate markets have made home ownership increasingly difficult for younger Americans. Beyond economics and war, institutional trust remains fragile. Trump's leadership style continues to polarize the electorate. His critics argue that confrontational rhetoric and challenges to media, federal agencies, and prior election processes weaken institutional norms. His supporters argue that he exposes corruption, challenges entrenched bureaucracies, and speaks directly to voters who feel ignored. The divide itself is part of the dystopian feeling, when nearly half the country views leadership as corrective and the other half views it as destabilizing. Collective confidence erodes.
House, they've now returned with the technical team and a warrant. Federal officers then going inside, making an arrest.
President Donald Trump is distancing himself from the aggressive claims made by his own officials.
Do you believe that Alex Prenny's death was justified?
Well, you know, we're doing a big investigation. I want to see the investigation. I'm going to be watching over it. I want a very honorable and honest investigation.
That's as close
over the weekend killing of Alex Preddy.
Immigration policy has also re-emerged as a flashpoint. The administration's expanded deportation plans and border enforcement measures are framed by supporters as necessary for national security and labor market protection. In retrospect, mass deportation strategies risk economic disruption in sectors reliant on immigrant labor and may deepen humanitarian concerns. Immigration debates are no longer about policy efficiency. They reflect broader anxieties about identity, security, and economic competition. The deeper issue underlying both administrations is structural strain. Wage stagnation trends date back to the 1970s. Wealth inequality has widened across multiple presidencies. Student debt remains significant. These are not single president problems, but each administration's response shapes public perception of stability or instability. A dream depends on confidence in the future. When citizens feel that economic mobility is uncertain, institutions are fragile, and global tensions are rising, optimism declines. Whether the American dream renews itself or continues drifting toward dystopian anxiety will depend less on rhetoric and more on structural reform, economic stability, and institutional resilience.
The American dream is dead.